For almost my entire life, I've been a Windows guy. It's just what you used, right? But not long ago, after years of just getting more and more frustrated, I finally did it. I switched to Linux. And what I found out was pretty wild. It wasn't just me. Not by a long shot. I had stumbled into this huge and frankly fast-growing migration. So today, we're going to break down exactly why this is happening and why it's all happening right now. And this quote right here, man, this just perfectly nails the feeling that pushed me, and honestly, millions of other people, right over the edge. It's not like there was one big catastrophic failure. No, it's more like a constant barrage of tiny annoyances that makes you feel like your own computer is actively working against you. So yeah, let's talk about that breaking point. I like to call it the death by a thousand cuts. It's all those little everyday things that just build up and build up until one day you just snap and say, that's it, I'm done. And look, this isn't just some hypothetical list. This is what people are dealing with every single day. I mean, you pay good money for an operating system, and what do you get? Full screen ads. Then they roll out this recall feature that's basically just taking screenshots of everything you do. And all the little things, like the taskbar bugging out and refusing to stay hidden, which is great for my OLED screen, by the way, or getting forced to sign into a Microsoft account just to set up my own PC, it all just piles up. It feels less like a tool I own and more like some kind of spyware that I paid for. For a while there, I honestly thought, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just being too picky. But then I started looking at the actual numbers, and it became so clear. This isn't just a personal pet peeve, it's a legitimate global trend. A great migration is happening. So that's the big question, right? Are all these little annoyances just stuff people complain about on Reddit? Or is it actually enough to make users abandon the single most dominant desktop operating system in history? Well, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. The data is just stunning. Recent reports are showing that as of late 2025, Linux now has an incredible 11.4% of the global desktop market. Now, for an OS that for decades hovered around 1 or 2%, a number like this isn't just a tremor, it's an earthquake. And this just shows you how fast this is all happening. We're talking about a 268% increase in just 3 years. This isn't some slow, gradual shift. This is a flat-out explosion in people switching over, a real exodus from a platform that so many of us thought was completely untouchable. But here it is. This is the knockout punch. One report surveyed almost 90,000 new Linux users. They asked a simple question: what OS did you use before this? And an absolutely staggering 87% said Windows. They're not coming from Macs or Chromebooks. They are, for all intents and purposes, Windows refugees. Microsoft isn't losing its grip to a competitor's fancy, expensive hardware. They're losing people to free, open-source software. So that really makes you wonder, how did this even happen? I mean, for years, the big roadblock was that Linux was seen as this super complicated thing for nerds. But in just the last few years, two major things happened that just completely demolished that barrier. Okay, so the first catalyst came from a place nobody really expected: gaming. When Valve launched the Steam Deck, this awesome handheld PC that runs on Linux, they sold millions of them. And suddenly, millions of gamers all over the world discovered a shocking truth. Gaming on Linux isn't just possible, it's actually fantastic. And that realization just spread like wildfire. I mean, if Linux could run games that well on a little handheld device, what could it do on a proper desktop PC? So people started testing, and they found that performance was often better than on Windows. Just look at this benchmark for Counter-Strike 2. Same exact hardware, but on Pop! OS, which is a version of Linux, it's hitting 340 frames per second. On Windows 11, 285. That is a 19% performance boost. For a gamer, that's not just a little improvement. That's a game changer. But hey, gaming is only one piece of the puzzle. The single biggest reason this whole migration is even possible for regular people is the absolute explosion of amazing, high-quality tutorials on YouTube. That old knowledge barrier that kind of protected Windows for decades, yeah, it's been completely erased. These videos, which get millions of views, literally just walk you through the entire process step by step. They make it all so simple, from picking a version of Linux like Ubuntu or Mint, to making the installer, to getting all your favorite apps and programs up and running. Something that used to feel like it required a computer science degree is now a simple, guided weekend project. And you really don't have to take my word for it. Just go look. The comments sections on these videos are flooded with thousands and thousands of messages just like this one. These are real, everyday, non-technical people who made the switch and were shocked at how easy it was. This kind of social proof is so powerful, and it's convincing millions more that, hey, they can do it too. So let's say you do it. You make the switch. What's it actually like on the other side? Is it really this promised land free from all those Windows frustrations? Well, let's take a look. Honestly, the difference is night and day. On a modern Linux desktop, there are no ads at all. The system is also way more efficient, often using like 40% less memory than Windows 11 when it's just sitting there doing nothing. And updates? You decide when and if you want to install them. The whole philosophy is about control. Your computer works for you, not the other way around. Of course, the big question people always ask is, yeah, but can I run my apps? And today, the answer is almost always yes. For pretty much every major Windows application, there's a powerful professional-level alternative on Linux. LibreOffice handles all your documents and spreadsheets, DaVinci Resolve is top-tier video editing software, and Blender is a monster in the 3D industry. And for those one or two weird Windows-only apps you just can't live without, tools like Wine and virtual machines let you run them perfectly. That whole application barrier, it's gone. Now, if you're thinking this is all just a movement of hobbyists and gamers in their basements, you'd be really, really mistaken. The most shocking part of this whole story is that even Microsoft's most loyal, most profitable customers, big businesses, are starting to pack their bags and leave. The city of Munich in Germany is the perfect example. They switched thousands of their city computers over to Linux way back in 2006. Then, after some political pressure, they caved and switched back to Windows in 2017. And they regretted it almost immediately. So now, in 2025, they've announced a final permanent move back to Linux for all 29,000 computers. Why? They flat out said it costless, runs better, and actually respects user privacy. And Munich is not some isolated case. Deutsche Telekom is in the process of moving 60,000 workstations to Linux, which they estimate will save them about $89 million. Tech giants like Valve and Epic, industrial leaders like Siemens, they're all doing the same math. And when even these huge, risk-averse corporations are making the jump, you know a fundamental shift is happening. So, when you put it all together, the flood of individual users, the massive adoption by gamers, and now the start of this corporate exodus, it all points to one thing. We are at a tipping point. And a tipping point is just that critical moment when a trend picks up so much steam that it becomes an unstoppable force. For Linux, experts believe that magic number is somewhere between 15 and 18% market share. Once it gets there, software and hardware companies can't afford to ignore it anymore. Support just becomes standard, which then fuels even more people to switch over. It's a feedback loop. And here's the craziest part. According to some leaked internal documents, even Microsoft sees this coming. Their own data is projecting that if these trends continue, Linux could hit that tipping point, reaching 18 to 22% of the market by the end of 2026. They know what's happening. So all of this brings us to one last question. For, over 20 years, the year of the Linux desktop has been this running joke in the tech world. But when you look at the hard data, the user frustration, the corporate migrations, that joke isn't really funny anymore. The question we're left with isn't if, it's when. Is it finally here?